It always is. Right then, here we go, guys. Just as we go along, just shout me, unmute yourselves and shout me if if anything goes wrong again on this, because I won't know because I can't see anybody. Okay, we're going to talk this evening, and I'm reliably informed I've got 20 minutes, so I better hurry the hell up. This is about building mental toughness, and simply in life, in work, and in business, being able to bounce back from stuff is what sorts the men out from the boys or other gender pronouns of your choice. But before I do all that, before I talk to you more about this, what I want to say to you is that mental toughness can be learned. It is a skill, it is a talent, it is a characteristic that we all possess. But before I talk about that, I'm going to do, yes, this is what I was wearing yesterday. This is the full regalia. If anybody wants to screenshot that, feel free. But I do have a tendency to go a bit nuts on St. Patrick's Day, as well as other days of the year. So I'm Trish McGirr. For those of you who don't know me, I started off life in nursing, and specifically I specialised early on in my career. I became a mental health nurse specialist. At one time, the youngest at the highest grade of the clinical grading structure. I was the youngest in the country, and I specialised in trauma and addictions. I won't tell you my whole life story, but there's a reason for that. Being born and raised in Northern Ireland, I experienced and saw a lot of trauma in my life. So I went on as part of my training to do some additional training. So I became a therapist. I've been a consultant and a coach, and as I've put here, a leprechaun and also a lunatic, because in spite of the fact that I have 40 plus years in human development, I would still say I'm still a novice at this stuff, because you never stop learning. And part of the journey of learning about human development and personal development is constantly reevaluating who you are and what you are and how you behave. And this brings that into relief what we're talking when we talk about this mental toughness. And I say this every time for those who don't know me, but I am comfortable with calling myself a lunatic, because at one time, in spite of all of my knowledge, skill and experience, I fell into debt. There were reasons for that, but I tried to kill myself when it became incredibly overwhelming. And it's one of the reasons why I have set up Repossession Rescue, because I know what debt and mental health combined can do, and it can literally drive you over the edge, as it almost did for me. But thankfully, there is a good end to the story. Clearly, I'm still here. And actually, my lowest point taught me everything that I know about who I am, and taught me everything that I know about the bounce back ability of not just the human brain, but the human spirit. And it's something that I am passionate about sharing, and I share it through my work. I share it and absolutely integrate it into Repossession Rescue. It's not just about property deals. It is absolutely 100% about doing business with a good heart. So that's who I am. And I want to leave you, before we even get started, with this wee quote. And the quote is attributed to many people, but the origin of the quote, as far as I can ascertain, and many people can ascertain, is by Haruki Murakami. And the phrase is this: pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And this little image that you see here are two gentlemen, which some of you will recognize and others will not. They are absolutely massive inspirations in my life. They are the Brownlee brothers, who are from Yorkshire. And this is a picture of Johnny on the right, suffering, clearly suffering, and his brother Alistair, who, for the want of a better word, is the better triathlete overall, helping his brother get into the silver medal position, because he was winning comfortably. And you can see the suffering on his brother's face. You can see the suffering on Johnny Brownlee's face, because he simply blew up on the last kilometre of the marathon run at the end of the triathlon. Pain in life is inevitable, but suffering is something that we can choose to engage in or not. So I want to leave you with that, because if you learn nothing and do nothing, please take that away from him. So I want to just say about why we quest for this thing about mental resilience and mental toughness and what have you. Is it really to know happiness in your life, that you have got bounce back ability? Or is it really just about trying to get through life relatively unscathed? And maybe that's a couple of questions you might ask yourself. You know, if you thought you were tougher, if you thought you were more confident, if you thought you had more bounce back ability, what will it give to your life that perhaps you don't have right now? And people will have different answers to that. And certainly as I've moved on in life and got a few more white hairs that I've had to cover up with more purple and pink, I realized that there is a mixture of reasons why we want to quest, not just for this thing called happiness, but what it is that takes us to that place. But here's a wee quote. I'm quoting myself. Take this one to the bank, by the way, guys. If you give your brain the job it was built for, it will perform miracles. I know that I've given my brain a hell of a beating at times. And maybe a few of you are having a laugh at the whole idea. But our brains are amazing pieces of machinery, science, hormones, you know, and structure. And our brains, it's the one organ in our body that we know, but we still don't really know. We don't really know a lot about it. We know a lot about it, but we don't know it all. And it's one of the things that, again, if I can give you some themes that I want you to remember about this mental toughness and resilience and bounce back ability, is that the more we give our brain some work to do and give it the chance to work its way through stuff, it will truly perform miracles from you. It will take you from absolutely crestfallen to champion level stuff. But you have to allow your brain to do what it's been doing for billions of years. And that is to learn. You need to give your brain the chance to learn. And the only way our brains learn is by giving it experiences. So again, there's a few wee things I'll return to. Our brains are designed to adapt. That's what they've been doing since man grew out of the swamp and became, you know, a form that's similar to the one we have now. But over the years, over the millennia, we've allowed our brains to become sloppy. We've allowed them to become lazy. We've allowed them to become overindulged, and we've allowed them to become distracted. And whilst I might get shot down for saying we're overindulging our brains, I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. But if you imagine this brain that was designed for hunter-gathering, this brain that was designed to problem solve, this brain that was designed to literally learn new stuff, and our brain structure changes the more we give it new stuff to learn, that we've dumbed it down. We've allowed it to be fed with the worst, you know, diet in the world, the drudgery that we watch that doesn't educate us, that, you know, we've made it lazy and fat. And we've distracted it with every kind of other thing that can take its focus. And when we learn to bring it back to focus, when we learn, and again, I'm using these words deliberately because I want you to understand this. When we learn how to give our brain what it needs, not just physically, not just emotionally, not just spiritually, but we learn to give it things to do and we direct it, it actually begins to grow and solidify, and it begins to form structures internally that enable you to overcome anything. And I mean anything. And this is the stuff I love. I light up when I talk about this stuff. You guys will hear this in my voice. But there's some things I think that we're addicted to. And here's a few things that I think that we are addicted to. And I've seen this as a therapist, I've seen it as a coach. And as a therapist, people will say that is heresy, Trish, because talking therapies often talk about going backwards so that we understand the past, so that we can whatever. So we say things like, I just need time to process this. Or this is going to take me a long time. Or I can't do what all these other people do. Or I've tried it before and that doesn't work for me. All of this is lazy brain thinking. It is absolutely, if you hear yourself using these phrases, I want you to say, get off your fat ass brain, because you were built for better than this. You are built for more than this. You are literally plastic. You can bounce, and I'm going to make you bounce. I'm going to commit to making you bounce. So what I mean by I need to process, there is nothing wrong with us looking back on things or analysing a situation that required us to start to think differently. But processing can become a never-ending negative loop of thoughts that we go over and over and over and over without resolution. Now, one of the things that I help people with is how to break out of patterns. This is why I said I'm an addiction specialist. But addiction is just a negative loop. You are stuck in a negative loop. It has its processes, it has its thoughts, it has its outcomes, but it simply goes round and around and around and around, usually in a negative spiral. So when you see yourself repeating the same things over and over again, when you find yourself having to overthink, overanalyze, overdo, then one of the things you can learn is to say, I can see what I'm doing here. I can see that all I'm doing now is I'm over processing. What I need to find a way to break that cycle. This thing about it's going to take a long time. So the new changes you need to make are going to take a long time. The thought process that you're going to engage in is going to take a long time. The fact that time, and by the way, I have a functional problem with numbers. So my concept of time is very, very skewed. My idea of a long time, it could be 5 minutes and I won't know. I won't know if I've been here an hour and a half. So somebody shout me when it's 20 minutes. So the idea of time, again, is one of those illusions that we allow to hold us back from taking even one step towards the solution. We need to break that pattern. The idea that I say, I can't do what you do, I can't do what you do, I can't do what he does, I can't see myself in his place, then don't see yourself in his place, her place, their place. See yourself in your place where you are now and with the vision of the direction that you want to go in. Because going in the direction you want to go in is going to take you to the place you want to be. Surely you might make some deviations along the way, but comparison is the greatest, laziest, and most destructive pattern of thinking that the human being has created. They're very rarely that you will find in any other bit of the animal kingdom. They spend time looking, hey, I look a bit better than him. The only time that comes is when all the animals want to have sex and they go for the best looking thing. But don't do the comparison stuff. Try and wean yourself off comparison. And if that means turning off the Kim Kardashian photos, get rid of those. Don't compare yourself to her. The tried but doesn't work. Again, part of our mental toughness requires us to go through things that aren't going to work, things that are going to give us the feedback that we didn't really want to see or really want to hear. It's the stuff that you said, I've done it, it doesn't seem to be working. So again, one of the greatest antidotes for I've tried but it doesn't work is to not just break the goal down into small steps, but to actually say, am I at least heading in the direction? I'm going out for a run today. I want to do 5 miles. If I do 1, am I heading in the direction? Absolutely. If you do 0, you're heading in no direction. So it's breaking it down, not just into chunks, but it's actually making it work for you in a way that you understand that every step you take is something you commit to and you move towards the goal. I'm not going to go through all this because this is just me taking the proverbial up to a point. People will say they've tried this before. I've tried counseling, I've tried psychotherapy, I've tried coaching, I've done past life regression, karmic rebalancing, life alignment, meditation, yoga. I've tried ayahuasca to unlock this human potential that I have. All of these things may potentially work for you to a point. And let's face it, I have done psychotherapy, I have done coaching, I have done counseling, I have actually done life alignment, and I do teach meditation. But anyway, some of these things can work and do work. They are not the overall solution, but they are a tool in the toolkit. And when we talk about our tactics, having the right tools is always about the right tool at the right time, in the right place, with the right intention. Again, guys who know me know I say that phrase all the time. But we've got to remember that sometimes the tools we're using are not working for the thing that we're working on. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It means it doesn't work at the moment. And so whatever tools you've tried already, it may be time for you to move on to using some other stuff and learning some other things. So the secret, I'm about to blow myself right out of the water here, guys. The secret that isn't a secret at all is that the actual way for you to be mentally tough is to learn how to do it. But as I said before, suffering is optional. Suffering is optional, but pain will be there in your life. Pain is in everybody's life. but you can learn to develop mental toughness. You can learn to develop resilience. You can learn to develop confidence. You can learn to develop that self-control that you need to achieve the things that you need to do, even if life throws you a curveball, knocks your legs from under you, punches you in the face, and kicks you in the gut at the same time. So we have to learn one thing. We have to learn to tolerate a bit of suffering. I've used the word suffer. I don't mean incredible suffering. We have to learn how to bounce back from suffering. And it's been known for a long time. So as I'm saying, I'm not teaching you anything new, but I want to refocus your brain on this. It's been known for a long time. Frederick Nature, 1844 to 1900, said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Give you another one. Martha Washington, way back 1731 to 1802. "I'm determined to be cheerful and happy in whatever situation I may find myself, for I have learned the greater part of our misery or unhappiness is determined not by our circumstance, but by our disposition." So even old Martha there, while she was allegedly sewing the American flag, not quite sure whether that's an urban myth or not. The Americans will probably shoot me for it. But she knew, having gone through trials and tribulations, she knew it was how she reacted to them that would determine the overall outcome. And if we go back a very, very long time ago, Marcus Aurelius, 121 to 180 AD, says this: "It's time you realized you have something in you more powerful and miraculous than the things that affect you and make you dance like a puppet." And I love this phrase. I love this quote attributed to Marcus Aurelius, because doesn't life spend its time making so many of us dance like a puppet? And for me, that was me for a very, very long time, dancing in and dancing out, twirling around like an Irish banshee on St. Patrick's Day, full of Guinness. That wasn't me yesterday, but that was because I've had a stomach bug. But seriously, if you realize that for thousands of years, we have known the solution to actually living a life that is purposeful and pleasurable, that is full of challenge, but also full of champion outcomes, lies only in what we decide we want to do with our brain. I talked about replaying the game tape. And I'm going to say this to you: if this is one of the things that you do, you spend time replaying, how did that go? How did that go? How did that go? Or how did it go 5 years ago where I was? Or how did it go 10 years or 20 years or 30 years or 40 years? And you find yourself locked in that thinking that you will never escape from the ghosts of the past. One thing that you can learn is that replaying the game tape is only useful to you if you learn something you can apply now that will change the now. Because if you change the now, you will change what happens next. And all too often, and this is one of the reasons why I rarely, if ever, offer traditional therapy anymore, that lots of traditional therapy, lots of psychotherapy spends so much time in the past that it fails to bring into the future the tools that we can use now. So a lot of what I do right now is very hybrid stuff. It is a mixture of some spiritual stuff. It is a mixture of the emotional stuff. It is a mixture of understanding human psychology. It definitely is using therapy stuff, but ultimately it is a blend. It is like mixing something for you, for me, that will work for you. So replay the game. It's only useful if you can learn something you can apply. To learn something, you have to be challenged. You cannot learn from a place where you stay safe. There is nothing to be gained there. Fine, it may be safe there, but you will never move from where you are. To learn, you have to be challenged. To be challenged, you have to put yourself in the ring. To put yourself in the ring means sometimes you will lose, and losing is a form of suffering, or to a smaller or lesser degree, and suffering is necessary for part of your learning to take place. Now, that suffering, as I say, could be that you messed up on a deal. That suffering could be you didn't get the job. That suffering, it doesn't have to be traumatic suffering. But even in the worst traumas of our lives, in the loss of someone suddenly, in a relationship breaking down that we desperately wanted to happen, even in the midst of those, even in the midst of me trying to kill myself, in the biggest bit of suffering was the greatest part of my learning. I don't recommend trying to kill yourself, but I'm saying in the greatest part of our suffering, we can find that spark that tells us our brain wants us to live and live well and learn and change. So one thing I want you to do from tonight is get a plan before you need it. And that might be as simple as you put something in your bucket. Sorry, I did say I wouldn't swear, but I did. But there you go. What do you need in place when the wheels really come off? So instead of waiting for the wheels to come off, saying, oh my God, I don't know what to do, write yourself a little mindset survival plan, a little bulletproof brain survival plan. Write it now. It might be around a particular scenario. What happens if this deal doesn't come off? What happens if the relationship doesn't work out? What happens if that thought that keeps coming into my head about something in my past? What do I do when that surfaces again? Put something in your bucket now that you can use when the wheels come off. That could be something from that list I mentioned, therapy, counseling, whatever. But it can be something as simple as a playlist. I have several playlists that I use regularly. I have one that is based on all of the superhero action movies and is really rousing up, uplifting, power-based music. And I blast that as loud as I can if I really, really have one of those days when the whole world feels like it's against me. It could be books that you love. I've mentioned Marcus Aurelius. The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius is a brilliant book to dip into. It could be quotes that you find inspirational. Hopefully I've thrown a few good ones at you. It could be your go-to friend or your professional advisor. Here's Jane here tonight talking, and so many of the guys on our panel. It could be the people that you know you can say anything to when you need that extra little bit of a foundation for your bounce back to happen. But get the plan before you need it. And so many of us have a plan after we've needed it. In my case, I literally waited until it was the last possible moment because I didn't put a plan in place. I didn't have a lifeboat, and I nearly sunk myself. And implement and then escalate that plan. You don't have to start at the, oh my God, I really need to, go and see a counselor, but implement the plan as you need it. Some days all we need is that duvet day when we say, that's it, I'm putting the books away. I'm not doing anything else. I actually can't cope with this today, and it's okay, because today I'm just going to take the day off. But it might be that you need something more. But if you get your plan in place sooner, you have a much better chance of giving your brain the job, which is help me solve this, help me learn so that I can find my way forward. And it will give you the confidence to implement the plan. I did say this was simple, but powerful. And there are 4 pillars of mental toughness. The first one is control. Control of yourself, control of your self-belief and who you are. Now, I'm talking about confidence in a wee minute, but control, there are certain things we can control and there are certain things we cannot control. But understanding that that's the case and being okay that sometimes things are outside of our control is something that we need to learn to live with. Commitment is about your focus, your intention, and being able to stick with things that you said you're going to do. Even though, as I said before, you say it's not working, but if you've committed to it and follow through on it, it is amazing. Not only that does something to your belief in your control, but it enables you to see that you're beginning to develop. If we talk about challenge is about your adaptability to situations. You can only do that when you put yourself in situations that force you to learn to adapt. By all means, you take learning and advisors with you along the way to help steer you. But it's a bit like being on a bicycle with training wheels. Your advisors are your training wheels. You take one off and you've still only got 2 wheels on the floor, 3 wheels on the floor. And then you take the other one off until the day that you're on your own. That doesn't mean you won't fall off your bike, but it does mean you can protect yourself up to a point. And when you fall off, you're less likely to hurt yourself. And if you do hurt yourself, it won't be as severe. Think about challenge in those ways. Give your brain the chance to do its job, but bring your advisors and your team along with you. And confidence comes from doing all of the above. It isn't something you can read in a book and suddenly go out and do it. Confidence comes from believing you can do it, believing that you are going to give it a go, knowing that sometimes it's going to hurt and you're going to get your ass kicked along the way. But you also know you have a plan in place to help you overcome those times. Last little bit. I'm going to give you 10 little power strategies that I want you to think about. Learn to learn. I mean, it sounds like the obvious, but seriously, so many of us, and I've been guilty of this myself, so many of us forget to look back on a scenario, and instead of indulging in the let's talk about that time that your mother-in-law insulted me and said she didn't like me very much, and it made me remember when I was 5 and my father said he didn't like me very much either, and it through. Right, okay, what did I learn from that? That some people are assholes. Great, that's fine, let's move on from that. Okay. Sagacity is a word. Go and look this word up. Sagacity is the learning that we take with us. So learn to find things in your history, again, in quotes, in words, in music, in poetry, and whatever. It's the learning that you love. So I can't remember who Mary mentioned, Maya Angelou. Sorry, Jane, it might have been you, my darling. But if the words of Maya Angelou speak to you, and genuinely, when you read them, you are inspired and uplifted, that's your brain engaging in mental toughness. So learn how to learn, and learn how to find the things that work for you. Plan your worst case scenarios and then work backwards from it. If the worst case scenario is we lose this deal, what's the next thing? What's the next worst thing? Well, our investors may have to take their money back. Oh, well, or this might happen. You plan the worst case scenarios and you work back, and you plan the conversations you need to have, the people you need to speak to, the advisors you need to bring in, because that gives you confidence. Nail your beliefs about yourself. If you find yourself in negative self-talk, and let's face it, we do it all the time. We have a horrible, syndrome of this comparison stuff. But nail your beliefs about yourself. Really spend time looking at yourself in the mirror, taking silly photographs of yourself, analyzing every wart, wrinkle, and whatever, and saying to yourself what you truly believe about yourself. And when those negative words come in to who you are and what you're about, you need to deal with that. They are the poison that runs through our veins and takes away every single bit of joy and pleasure and belief and opportunity. I want you to talk to your angels and your demons, because we all have them, but talk to them in a way a bit like Will Smith in I, Robot. If you've never seen the I, Robot movie, the professor is killed, as it turns out, by one of the robots. I've just given the plot away, but he says to him, he comes up in a little laser thing, hologram, and he says, I have limited answers. You have to ask the right question. So if you're going to talk to the angels and demons of your past, a great question to ask them is, what lessons should I learn from this? Instead of indulging in more talk about why did you do this to me, or why did this happen to me, or how did this happen to me, ask them the question that enables you to move forward. And that is, what am I here to learn? Give your brain the job that it's been doing for hundreds of thousands of years. And that is to learn, to survive, and to thrive. I want you to coin a little cheerleading chant for yourself. It might be, hey, I'm gorgeous. It may be every morning when you say, God's sexy, you have got the world's on fire around you. Give yourself the cheerleading chant. There's nothing better than putting a bit of music on and giving yourself something to celebrate for. And again, I don't care how daft you look dancing around your bathroom, your bedroom, or your living room, but find a way to find something that means something to you. All of this enables your brain just to fire up its energy, and firing up its energy enables it to find solutions. Find the funny. People from the NHS and certainly public sector services often have what's called, what I have coined, a dark and dirty sense of humor. But if you can find the funny, or at least find something to take from it that you can at least smirk about, even again in the worst possible cases. I joke sometimes about the belt that I tried to hang myself with. I wish I'd kept it because the pants are now back in fashion. But however, find the funny in that. And the funny in that is just, again, learning to raise the energy levels around something, even something as traumatic as that, because it enables you to look back in a way that the past can no longer hurt you. It can only empower you. Know why you're suffering and know when to stop. So remember that some of the things we're doing as business owners is we're putting ourselves in situations where we know we may fail. So we've chosen to get in the ring. How brilliant is that? We've chosen to get in the ring. So if you know why you're suffering, you should also know the thing that's on the other side of that suffering is a goal of some description. Because if you connect to that why, if you connect to, I've put myself here, So I am going to make this happen. And if not this time, I'm going to get up and start again. Then at least allow yourself to bask in the glory of, I'm in the ring and I'm going to give it my best. That might be a little chant, by the way. So stop when you know you need to stop. And that stop doesn't mean giving up. That stop sometimes means to allow yourself time to rest. Sometimes, indeed, as I've done, we drive ourselves to the point of exhaustion. We drive ourselves to the point of oblivion. Just remember sometimes to put the brake on, get out of the car, go and lie on the grass and look up at the clouds. And as Jane said earlier on, if any of you here have had any life-changing experiences, you will know what I'm talking about. You will know that our time on the earth is precious and none of us know when it's going to end. Don't waste it. Ask for help. Sounds obvious, but I was the worst at asking for help because I had a big ego. I had lots of shame and guilt and fear around my background, and I didn't believe I could ask anybody for help. That is the biggest, stupidest mistake of my entire life. Don't be me, be better. And by all means, practice gratitude and selflessness. So gratitude for all the stupid things that we have. My State of the Nation address yesterday was all about that. But practice gratitude. But more importantly, don't just write it in a journal. Go and practice selflessness. Go and do something for somebody, however small that is. If we'd given them £1 towards a cup of coffee that they couldn't afford, it could be paying for someone's £5 set of buns at the checkout at Asda. But practice selflessness, because when you put yourself in the flow of energy that is surrounded by love and surrounded by abundance, that does amazing things for you because it opens up opportunities. But again, it gives your brain a whole big hit of dopamine that you can't get from running a 10K. Couple of wee resources. I love the Daily Stoic. I'll put these in the group. And there's lots and lots of websites about mental toughness. But I think mental toughness tools is a little quiz in there that you can do. And a couple of exercises. I mean, I've told you what power plays are really. But if you've low energy, create a down day playlist. If you hate music, then pick an activity instead. If you're overthinking, get the plan. If you know that you're prone to overthinking some stuff, have a list of activities that you require you to do something different, to get out of the house, go crafting, learn painting, change that mental state, change that thing you're working on, move away from the overthinking, whatever the activity and the place that you're overthinking, move away from it physically, move away from it spiritually, move away from it from an energetic level and find something else to do. Again, have that on your list so that some days you may have to escalate that. Journaling works. Now, journaling for some people is, oh my God, I tried, that didn't work. It may work if you dictate. It may work if you write. It may work if you paint. It may work if you craft. Journaling can come in many forms. I have 2 journals. One's called a dark journal. One's called a light journal. The dark journal contains all of my worst fears, all of my most horrible thoughts. And once I have read them and I am exhausted, written them, sorry, and I'm exhausted, I never read that journal ever again. They're out. And I have a journal that's all about love and light and happiness and all the amazing people I've met. And the other thing that you can do to give your beautiful brain a chance to learn and a chance to grow and a chance to do its job is to set a challenge you can achieve, but that stretches you. And that could be physical as well as the one that you do in your business. The more we learn to give ourselves some pain that we can tolerate, the quicker our brain grows a big, beautiful bubble of awesomeness.
Amazing.
That's it.
That was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. I've got to find me.
Amazing.